Welcome to the lesson on speciation. In this lesson, we'll be discussing exactly what does it mean to be a species, when does speciation occur. We'll identify 4 kinds of isolation, including geographic, behavioral, temporal, and genetic isolation, as well as discuss difficulties within the definition of being a species. All right, let's get started. We have a species defined as a population which is mutually interfertile and interbreeds in nature. Speciation occurs when there is disruptive or diversifying selection coupled with isolation. We're going to take a look at 4 kinds of isolation. There's geographic isolation, which is when groups are physically separated by land features such as mountains, rivers, or canyons, etc. The kaibab, forgive my pronunciation if it's incorrect, and Abert squirrels on either side of the Grand Canyon are a good example of this. The Galapagos Islands are another great example of geographic isolation and how we've applied that earlier to Darwin's various species that he was examining, the tortoises and the finches, for example. Another type of isolation is behavioral isolation. This is when groups may live in the same place, but they are separated by some type of behavior. A good example of this is different types of sparrows tell each other apart with mating calls. All the types of sparrows that live around here, for example. However, they are in isolation because the different types tell each other apart with different mating calls. Another type of isolation is temporal isolation. And this is when groups are separated by different mating or reproduction schedules. For example, in Cayuga Lake, the rainbow trout and the brown trout have seasonal mating schedules, while the landlocked salmon that are in the lake have a lifespan and a reproductive schedule every 2 years. So this would qualify as a temporal isolation, even though they live in the same body of water. Lastly, we have genetic isolation. These are groups separated by too many differences in genetic material. Cats versus dogs, for example. Or how about the horse versus the donkey? There's too many genetic differences in order for them to reproduce and create more of their species. There are also difficulties within the definition of species. For example, race circles, also called ring species. Ring species are a connected series of populations, some of which can interbreed, but some cannot. This type of salamander, for example, or gulls, Asian warblers, all good examples of ring species. What about fossil species? Where do you draw the line between a prehistoric lineage? At what point are they dinosaurs? And at what point are they considered birds, for example? We also have the concept of adaptive radiation, which equals one species splitting into many. Darwin's finches, for example. How different do populations have to be to count as different species? So this whole topic of speciation, as you can tell, is not black and white. It's, well, gray, and often gives us difficulties with being able to define what a species is and what it isn't. Let's take a look at what Hank has to say about this in his lesson on speciation.